Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Medicine and Science on the Pod TV network. My name's Nick Palavita. I'll be your host and moderator for today's show, but the man who's going to be doing the presentation on medicine and science will not be an attorney like RFK or myself. He'll be actually a real medical doctor who normally you want to get your medical advice from. People you've seen on the Pod TV network before, none other than Dr. Michael Patmos, who's board certified in internal medicine. So we're bringing in Dr. Michael Patmos to bring us some breaking news in the medical front because things are changing quite rapidly, especially in the Washington, D.C. area. So let us know what's going on.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you again for the privilege of being with you. And it has been nonstop, interesting news every single day. There's lots of things going on. Now, let's make a little potpourri of observations today. First of all, I was pleased to see that Dr. Casey Means, who is the Trump RFK nominee for Surgeon General, had a very tough session in Congress in her interview in the Senate. And I don't think she fared very well. What I was pleased about is because for months now, about 6 months ago, I wrote quite a bit about delving into her background and raised the question about the fact that she's not qualified. She never finished her residency program. And it's very odd that she went almost all the way through her residency and quit at the very end. You know, if she was basically, it's like quitting 50 feet from the end of a marathon. Why would you do that? Would you just walk across the finish line and get your medal? So had she just lasted a few months more, she would have finished her residency, and then she could have become board eligible. She would have been board certified. Or she would have been board eligible. She could have taken the test and been board certified, and at least had that credential. She didn't have to practice ENT medicine. I mean, just because you finish a residency, if she didn't really like ENT, she could say, "Well, I don't want to do that." But at least she'd have that board eligibility. Otherwise, she wasted her entire residency. Imagine wasting 5 years of grueling postgraduate training after medical school and quitting with a few months left to go. It just doesn't pass the sniff test. There has to be something more going on there. And that issue did come up during her hearing, and a lot of people have been writing about this. Now, I think I might be the first, but a lot of people have been writing about the fact that she has very peculiar and inadequate qualifications. She doesn't have an active license to practice medicine, and she is not fully trained. She's not board eligible or board certified. So she's really not qualified to advise the country on matters of public health as the Surgeon General. She doesn't have anything like the qualifications of prior Surgeon Generals. And I'm glad that her qualifications are being looked at. I've been pounding away at this issue of verifying and delving into the qualifications of these physicians who have been appointed into prominent positions of power in the administration, because across the board, none of them are qualified. Another example, and one that has gotten, I think, some attention that was well deserved, is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. For those who are familiar with who he is, Dr. Bhattacharya is a Stanford professor who was appointed to run the NIH and who just a couple of weeks ago was appointed in a shakeup to run CDC. And that got a lot. It's surprising that got his appointment to CDC, it seems to me, got more attention from folks than his appointment to NIH, which is just as problematic. Why is Jay Bhattacharya's appointment to NIH and CDC problematic? He's unqualified. Casey Means at least did most of a residency and was this close to finishing. Bhattacharya has no training after medical school at all, not a single day. He never even did an internship. He never did a residency. He never did a fellowship. He is not board eligible. Of course, he's not board certified. He has no medical license and doesn't qualify for a medical license. He has never taken care of a patient. He has no hospital medical staff membership and no clinical privileges. So how can the NIH website refer to him as a renowned doctor? You can't be a renowned doctor if you don't even have a license to practice medicine and don't qualify for one and have never seen a patient? How can you be a renowned doctor if you've never taken care of a sick person? Seems to me that being a renowned doctor means you're a good doctor and you're recognized for that. He's not even licensed. He never even did an internship. He is an economist, despite the fact that the NIH website refers to him as an epidemiologist. He is not an epidemiologist. To be an epidemiologist, you have to have a master's degree or a PhD. He doesn't. His degrees, he has an undergraduate degree, he has an MD degree, nothing more, and then he has a PhD in economics. He's an economist. If you look at his CV, all of his research, all of his publications are on economic policy. He doesn't do bench research. He's not trained in molecular biology, doesn't work in a lab, hasn't done clinical research. He's done economic research and policy research, which is pretty much all opinion-based. And he's a hardcore Trump MAGA supporter. The quality of his work is really questionable. His most famous article, The Great Barrington Declaration, doesn't even have a bibliography, not a single reference. I don't know about you, but if you have kids and you help them with their homework and they're writing a paper, I think you learn in 6th grade to put in references, on a scientific article. Well, the Great Barrington Declaration doesn't even have a single reference. So it's all made up. Anyhow, his appointment to CDC is shocking because he doesn't know anything about infectious diseases or epidemiology or infection control or disease prevention. He's completely and utterly unqualified from a clinical point of view. He's completely and utterly unqualified from a research point of view. He doesn't do the kind of bench research that is important to have an understanding of to be the NIH director. And he's completely and utterly unqualified from a management point of view. He has no management credentials, no management training, no MBA, no experience running large organizations. Now, here he is running 2 very large organizations. So he's unqualified. He's a trifecta of being unqualified. He's unqualified clinically, scientifically, and managerially. Now, one last point I will make is another doctor I had profiled was Dr. Abraham, who was appointed as the CDC chief medical officer or something to that effect, just one step below where Bhattacharya is. Well, he resigned abruptly. I don't know. We don't know why, allegedly for family reasons. But he resigned abruptly. And the thing to know about Dr. Abraham is that he also has no qualifications. His qualifications, so he's a veterinarian who then went to medical school and did 1 year of internship. Well, that's 1 year more than Bhattacharya did. He did 1 year of internship and then has been a practicing rural GP in South Central Louisiana for 30 years and become notorious in the state of Louisiana for being one of the most prolific prescribers of narcotics and opiates. So we hear a lot about the opioid crisis. Well, Dr. Abraham is one of the, I think, top 2 or 3 prescribers of opiates in the entire state of Louisiana. Has no hospital experience at all, no training in infectious diseases, no residency, no fellowship, no board certification. Well, he was at CDC and he just resigned. And it was that and right after that, Bhattacharya came in. So what we're seeing across the board in the Trump administration is physicians who are unqualified and who actually have, embellishments and even fabrication on their credentials. I mean, it says right on the NIH website that Dr. Bhattacharya is a renowned physician and scientist. I'm sorry, but you have to do an internship, Jay. Yeah, that's like basic. You got to do an internship. You can't practice medicine. Anyhow, that's that. Now I wanted to segue to this year's respiratory virus season. It's quite bad. I have some numbers for you that I think you're going to find shocking. I would bet you that if you were to ask people what the numbers are for influenza and for COVID just this season, just since October, the respiratory season, what are the numbers? Well, here they are, and you better sit down because these are pretty shocking numbers. Just since this season, since October, we're talking about a few months, there have been 25 million cases of influenza documented. 330,000 hospitalizations for influenza and 26,000 dead. so far from influenza this season. 26,000 dead. That, you know, and it's almost entirely preventable. Influenza vaccination is really effective at preventing death. So just bear that in mind. For COVID, you know, we've heard COVID is gone, COVID is history, COVID is, you know, not in the room anymore. Well, what are the numbers for COVID this year? This season. There have been between 3 and 9 million cases of COVID. Now, why do we not know better? Because we're not collecting the information very well anymore. That effort has been blunted by the Trump administration. There have been between 96,000 and 170,000 hospitalizations for COVID. And are you ready for this? There's been between 10,000 and 30,000 deaths from COVID just this season. So I ask you, is COVID gone? I don't think so. Not with 30,000 people dead. To put that number, this is just the season, the 30,000 deaths from COVID, we lost in the 9 years we were in Vietnam, we lost 59,000 Americans. We have lost half that amount just this season from COVID. And remember, the COVID vaccine is highly effective at preventing death. So speaking of vaccination, what are the vaccination rates currently? Well, for children under 4, for COVID, the vaccination rate is 9.3%. That means that over 90% of children under 4 are not protected from COVID. And guess what? They get it and they get sick from it. And little kids do die of COVID. For influenza, it's much better. About 56% of children under 4 have gotten the flu shot from their pediatricians. Way to go, pediatricians, and way to go, parents, for getting your kids vaccinated. Over the age of 18 for COVID, we have a 17.6% vaccination rate, meaning the vast majority, over 80% of Americans over 18 are not vaccinated against COVID. As for influenza, it's about 46.5%. So most Americans over 18 have ignored influenza vaccination recommendations. And then over 65, COVID vaccination, about 33% of seniors over 65 are vaccinated against COVID, and 68% are vaccinated against influenza. So seniors know, and most of them are vaccinated against the flu. Most are not vaccinated against COVID. So what does this matter? It's because those vaccines, the COVID vaccine and the flu vaccine, are proven effective to prevent death. You might still get sick, but you'll be a lot less ill. And the purpose of vaccination, one more time, the purpose of vaccination is to prevent death. That's what these vaccines do. So by having so many people unvaccinated, what we're doing is we are encouraging them, allowing these unvaccinated people to give up their bodies and serve as a host, to host the virus, keep it inside their bodies, reproduce it, mutate it, and disseminate it for everyone else's benefit. That's why vaccination is not about you. It's about your neighbor. You're denying the virus, or at least reducing the likelihood that the virus will inhabit your body and that you'll host it, replicate it, mutate it, and disseminate it, and become the host reservoir. So anyhow, that's our news for today. Finally, some people are looking at the credentials of these fake experts, and we're still losing a lot of people to preventable respiratory disease.
I have a little bit of COVID good news if you're on the West Coast, like I am. Much of the COVID is huge right now in the Northeast and Midwest. It's super low in California. I've been taking my mask off, like when I go to the gym. Maybe I'm an idiot for doing that, but we've got a very low incidence, so it's like a little vacation. We'll see if it.
California, I'm licensed in California, and California Department of Health and the county health agencies in California are pretty good. I mean, they have the right thinking. They're not listening to these fakers at CDC.
Well, speaking of fakers, led by RFK Jr., there is a lot of medicine denial going on, which is that if you eat healthy, if you live healthfully, you will live a long, healthy life. And if you look at, I mean, okay, yeah, you might end up visiting the doctor less, but people still get sick. Like a third of all cancers, maybe half, you probably know the number. They don't know what caused it. It wasn't because you had too many sandwiches. And if you look at the improvements in life expectancy since 1990, I just looked it up, 35 to 73% of the improvements in life expectancy are due to improvements in medicine, not from eating better or from, and accusing people of, of not eating well. And that's like blaming the victim. It's like people.
It's a typical RFK shallow argument with a nubbin of truth. Yeah, no one is arguing we should eat healthy and exercise and be healthy. Doctors, as long as I've been a doctor 50 years nearly, and we've always said that. That's not new. Robert Kennedy is not being innovative and striking out when he talks about eating healthy and being healthy. And sure, if you're eating healthy, you're going to have a little better resistance. But bear in mind, there are a lot of infections that do not care at all how healthy you are. You can be very healthy. If you get rabies, you're going to die. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. There's a lot of viruses that just don't care about that. And remember, the Spanish flu killed 50 million people around the world. And guess whose primary victims were? Healthy young men.
They talk about the Amish. They like to talk about RFK. They like to talk about how the Amish don't vaccinate, they never get sick. And if you look at the actual statistics, they get sick a lot.
Yeah. The thing that gets me, Dr. Patmos, is the qualifications of the people that are running the health. And this is absolutely wrong. And we can start from the top down. And the top is Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy is an environmental lawyer. He has no background whatsoever in medical sciences, and he should not be running Health and Human Resources because he doesn't know anything. But to make matters worse, and the things that you brought out today, which I think is very important for people to know, and I'm going to start with Dr. Means. She seems like a really nice person, but she's not licensed. The lawyers that are listening to this realize there's a big difference if you received a Juris Doctorate degree and you pass the bar. If you pass the bar, you're licensed and you can practice and you can see clients. It's a whole different thing than just getting a JD. It sounds to me Dr. Means got an MD, but she never got licensed, which means she cannot practice medicine. I can tell you this after practicing law for 41 years. There's a big difference between a JD and a person who passes the bar and a person who practices. So this is very dangerous, especially in a high-level position, to have a person that unqualified in that position. And I'm going to go beat on Dr. J. And by the way, these people all come from Stanford. I went to the University of Miami, which is the Miller School of Medicine, and I went to my classmate was Stuart Miller, who basically donated $100 million to make it the Miller School of Medicine. And hopefully in Miami, we do not have such problems as apparently they do in Stanford. Okay. And I think they discredit Stanford from both these people graduating from the school and becoming pretenders. But let's take a look at him. Like, as you said, he's not licensed, which means he gets an MD degree, but he's never practiced. As we used to say in law, he's never met a client. So how can he have any high level responsibility in anything in the United States? It boggles my mind. He should not even be up. And you and I know both that no good medical group or hospital would hire him. Why? Because he can't see anybody. Right. I mean, it's like I can't hire a lawyer and say, hey, you come work for my law firm, but we got a little problem. Why? You can't see a client because you haven't passed the bar. This is what I'm telling attorneys that know this is a major problem that this administration has. It's hiring obsequious sycophants to get into positions of authority that don't have a clue what they're doing. So now I'm off.
Here's a book. Casey Means has written a best-selling book called Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health. What if depression, anxiety, infertility, insomnia, heart disease, erectile dysfunction, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, cancers, and many other health conditions that torture and shorten our lives actually have the same root cause? And so she's arguing that if you can get good energy, that's the name of the book, into your body, you can fight all these diseases. When really you want somebody as Surgeon General to say, yeah, if you get sick, you want medicine to fight these diseases, not good energy.
You know, where Casey means trained, where she did her almost complete residency was at Oregon Health Sciences University. I used to be on the clinical faculty. I was a clinical assistant professor at OHSU in Portland from about 2003 to 2005, short period of time, just a clinical appointment. I was not an assistant professor. I was clinical. That's a kind of a courtesy appointment. But I know that hospital and I know that organization well. Dr. Means ENT residencies are brutal. It's a surgical discipline. And what ear, nose, and throat doctors do is not just, look in your ear, and they take apart your face. They do these complicated surgeries called radical neck dissections, where they lift. I don't want to go into gory detail. I assisted when I was in medical school. I assisted at ENT surgery, and it's unbelievable. They disassemble your head and put it back together. It's very, very difficult, demanding, and stressful. And I can understand that she might have said, you know what, I've gone this far, I might as well finish, but I don't want to do this. It's too much stress. Along came her brother, who's not a doctor, who turned her on to the wellness thing. And she got into the wellness thing, which is big money. And she's actually part of a company that sells continuous glucose monitors. That's these little devices that tell you what your blood sugar is every minute of the day, which is really for diabetics, but they're pushing it for everybody. Well, she worked for this company that sells these glucose monitors, and guess what? RFK is pushing that right now. She stands to benefit because she's one of the owners of that glucose monitor company. Glucose monitors are largely unnecessary. It's like everybody walking around with a wearable to tell you what your pulse is. Well, most people don't need to worry about it, and most people don't need to know their continuous glucose
Let's
monitor.
talk about Portland. So Portland is a very healthy city, right? People eat well, they ride bikes, they probably have a lower rate of obesity than much of America, but people still get sick.
Boy, I know. I practiced in Portland for a total of 5 years, and I was on the staff at Providence Portland Medical Center. I was faculty attending. I made rounds there, and let me tell you, people get sick in Portland. It is a healthier city. In many ways, there's a health consciousness there, say, compared to other cities with higher incidences of alcoholism. But there's a lot of drug abuse in Portland, and there are a lot of homeless people, and they end up, in the hospitals. So those hospitals are there's a lot of hospitals in Portland, and they're really busy. And oh, by the way, a little shout out for Portland. Portland is one of the most medically sophisticated communities in the country. There are so many residencies and excellent professors there. It's a really great city from a medical education point of view, and it's a shame Dr. Means bailed out. So she should have just finished. Had she finished her residency, she probably would be approved as Surgeon General.
Right. But the fact is she didn't. It's like saying, hey, I took 3/4 of my law degree, but I didn't finish.
Yeah, but she also wouldn't be a millionaire. I assume she's a millionaire based on her pseudo-medical best-selling book and all this.
Probably. But the thing is, she's not qualified for this position. But now the thing is, let's talk a little bit about immunization in general. Okay, because they're always talking, hey, look, if I'm healthy, I eat right, I exercise. And the Indians, the Native Americans, they did that, didn't they? They ate right, they were really healthy, but then came smallpox. How did that work for them? Doc, how did that work for them? Did eating right and being a Native American and being healthy, did it stop smallpox from the Native Americans?
Smallpox doesn't care how healthy you are. And, I spent many years in Hawaii, and I can tell you that what happened when Europeans invaded the United States and invaded Hawaii, they brought diseases with them that wiped out these indigenous populations.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the indigenous population in the Hawaiian Islands were decimated when the white man came. We brought tuberculosis, venereal diseases, smallpox, lots of, these people had no immunity to this. They just got wiped out. Same thing happened, in North America as well with our indigenous population here. No, we've not been great friends to these indigenous people.
Well, I've got
okay. I'm eating right. I'm healthy. I work out every day. Now the thing is, I don't want to get vaccinated from polio. If I eat right and I'm healthy, I work every day. Will polio leave me alone?
No. No,
Really?
viruses, you got to remember, it's nice to be healthy, gives you a little bit of an advantage, but lots of viruses, many viruses, it doesn't matter how healthy you are. In fact, being healthy means you have a good, vigorous immune response, and it's the vigorous immune response that's responsible for a lot of the pathophysiology in these viral diseases. It's not the virus itself; it's the inflammatory cascade that it develops that causes the problem. So, no, being healthy does not. I've seen many. Here, I'm going to talk my own personal experience. I can't count how many young, healthy people I have seen die of preventable contagious infectious diseases. The reason I got passionate about vaccination in the first place goes all the way back to 1978 as a medical student when I saw a 26-year-old Mason, a laborer, a guy who was built like a linebacker with a wife and 3 kids who died of the flu. And I had to tell his wife that her husband was dead. And I'll never forget her words. She said, "How could he die? He was so healthy." I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, go on, Rick. Now I'll talk about.
I've got a question about so AI is just charging ahead at fantastic rates. Are you seeing an increase in the rate of medical breakthroughs because tech is infiltrating medicine?
That's a great question. There are a lot of areas. Well, I will reflect back to a continuing education course I took at Harvard a couple of years ago, where they identified the 5 top trends in healthcare. And one of them was artificial intelligence. And AI is being used extensively now already in radiology, when they look at CT scans and mammograms. The AI is able to calculate the number of microcalcifications, and it's doing a really good job already in widespread use in many areas. What the folks the professors at Harvard said is that AI will not put doctors out of business. It will only put doctors out of business who don't use AI. So how are a lot of doctors using AI? And they're using it as a tool to help their thinking, their thought process, and come up with lists of possibilities. But I think doctors realize that it's not infallible. AI can sometimes generate these delusional responses, but it can be a good source of information. And I use AI all the time to ask a question like, what are the 10 most common causes of this, or what are the 10? So it's a useful tool, but all it is a tool. But I think it's a tool that can make a doctor more effective, much like other online sources and even search engines. I mean, you just have to be scrupulous and fact check what you're getting back.
Right. Now we'll talk about the flu in just a moment, Dr. Patmos. Apparently, you said that there's 25 million cases of flu.
Yeah.
And of that, 26,000 people died. Now,
Correct.
These 26,000 people may or may not have taken vaccination, and they probably didn't. And instead, they were misguided. And the thing is, let's say they went to your the book, and the thing is, they said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go to alternative medicine. But here's the problem. If they seek alternative medicine from these anti-vaxxers, they have a conflict of interest, and they're dead. As an attorney, how can you sue these people when the client or the person who would maintain the suit has died?
Yeah.
Or it becomes a real problem. I mean, I used to joke about when I did estate planning work. I said, well, if I committed malpractice in my estate plan, the person who could sue me is dead, because his will is gone. Well, it's the same thing with these anti-vaxxers. These anti-vaxxers are selling snake oil. If the person dies because they took the snake oil, that's the plaintiff died, and so there's no way they can sue the people that write these crazy books.
Absolutely. And there's another aspect to this as well. If the practitioner is not a licensed MD, if they're a chiropractor, a naturopath, homeopath, or a natural healer, then the medical board has no jurisdiction. It's non-jurisdictional. There's no way to hold them accountable.
Yeah. And that also exists in law practice. In other words, for people that are are giving legal advice and they're not lawyers, but you can report them to the bar for what they call unauthorized practice of law.
Right.
And every now and then we do see that, the people out there, and they jump up and they do that. But I do have a real problem with people that aren't licensed, that are leading the country, because the thing it says you could not jump over that last hoop, which is to get a medical license. And it also means, like you said, there's no clinical experience. It's impossible because they can't see a patient, or in my case, you couldn't see a client if you did not pass a bar. So for these people to lead, that shows how poor our leadership is in Washington, D.C., which is not surprising. And I think people need to listen to your program more to understand this big difference that exists, because I think it will make a difference for what they're listening to. So any other final comments?
I would love to have Dr. Jay Bhattacharya serve as an intern on my ward team. I'd love to be his attending physician. I could have a lot of fun with him.
Well, I think he would, but he's got to get his license first.
I have a final thought.
You can't do anything unless you get your license.
I bring this up a lot, that in 1957 or 58, the Soviet Union put the first satellite in orbit around the Earth, and the U.S. freaked out and began a 30-year adventure in expertise, intense math and science education that has built the world that we live in now. But now the people in charge are anti-expertise.
Yes.
And
And you're correct, but also we have to go because we're at the half hour.
Right.
We want to thank our audience in the United States and, of course, around the world for watching Medicine and Science, only on the Pod TV network. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.